The old man met his greatest adversary just when he thought that part of his life was over.
Why didn't he just let the fish go?
The old man's got to be the old man. Fish got to be the fish. Got to be who you are in this world, right?
I remember the moment it was brought to my attention that the rights for The Equalizer were available.
I just thought, oh, it's a really good TV show. I didn't think it was a movie.
It's a brilliant idea to spin it into a film.
My partners and I loved that name, The Equalizer.
The Equalizer. It's not who he is, it's what he does.
He equalizes.
To me, I think it's about evening the playing fields.
One day someone does something unspeakable to someone you hardly knew. Man, you do something about it, because you can.
Todd Black and Jason Blumenthal called and said, we have a great project. It's called The Equalizer. And I said, you know, I think it's a TV show. She said, no, we think it's a movie for Denzel Washington. And I said, okay.
We have a very long-standing relationship with Denzel. We've made a number of movies with him, ones he's directed and starred in. And when we told him that we had acquired the rights to The Equalizer and that we were going to build a franchise for him, he asked one question: why? And I said, because what if superheroes were real? And I remember when he smiled and he got it.
Oh, it's about a guy who thinks he's a knight in shining armor. The only thing is he lives in a world where knights don't exist anymore.
It was completely applicable to something that's more needed today than ever before.
We're supposed to stand for something. Punk. Protect and serve, uphold the law. Justice.
This character has an inner sense of right and wrong. There is something innate in him that he can't stand to see injustices, especially on people who have no chance of helping themselves.
We all love superhero movies, you know, grow up, we love to have a hero come in and save the day. But it's hard to relate to a guy flying around in a cape outside of just fun. But if there's a guy that could be your neighbor, could be the grocery store clerk, could be your dad, that looks like us and acts like us and has a regular job, nothing fancy like us, but has special skills that can actually even the playing fields for us, why wouldn't you want that?
Yo, Pops, bet you didn't have to push no dollies at your old job, did you?
Guilty as charged. He really is an ordinary guy, you know, and he's working real hard to just blend in and to leave his past behind and help people where he can. You asked me to help you, but if you're not willing to apply yourself.
Who needs flavor, right?
As he says, he's done some awful things in his past, and he's not happy about that or proud of that. And I think people will relate to that.
I think audiences don't need everything spelled out, and we were pretty careful to let the mystery of his previous life be the leader.
He's very OCD, and he wakes up at the same time every night and goes to the same diner, and he's talking to some random girl who's obviously got something wrong in her life.
You catch that fish yet?
Just hooked it.
They're talking about fish and a book, and it's weird, and then you realize that this guy, he helps people in a certain way.
Don't doubt yourself, son. Doubt kills. Get up.
At the same time, he's become kind of this guy in a little box. And he keeps his life a little compact that way. Nothing bad comes in, nothing good comes in, but he just keeps himself quiet.
He famously has one spoon, one fork, and one knife, one dish, and one cup. And I think he's looking to find a place for himself, a home.
We all have missed the mark at some point in life, and it's all about how you get up and overcome. I think you can be anything you want to be.
Maybe in your world, Robert. It doesn't really happen that way in mine.
Change your world.
I definitely think that McCall is someone that can kind of look right into your soul and know what you're thinking, but at the same time, this is the first time he's ever met someone that can look into his soul. And she cracks his code.
You know, I see a lot of widowed guys. Something in your eyes.
The fact that she can see things in him that are true, and she can see it at such a young age, I think he's touched by that. And what he saw happening with this girl, he just didn't care for.
This girl,
It's no good. Call this number. I send you another one.
He has no choice but to help. He fights himself in that. He took his past and closed that chapter and decided to write a new future for himself.
I promised someone that I love very much that I would never go back to being that person.
And it's a battle because he made a promise to his wife. He made a promise to himself. And he's struggling to maintain that promise. But no matter how much you don't want to be a part of that, you can't stand around and allow someone's hope and dreams to just be snuffed out by some scumbag.
I can give you $9,800.
For what?
Freedom.
Each person he comes in contact with, he gives them an out.
Those people you took the money from, maybe you should give it back.
Why would we do that?
That would be the best interest of everyone involved.
He's looking for the good in everybody. You might need an opportunity, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to fix the problem that you caused.
Do the right thing. Do it for the good cops, Frank.
You think you're partying it up, you think you're having a great time, abusing all these people, doing all these things. Well, there is going to be a reckoning, and it is Robert McCall.
I gave them a chance. They made their decision.
Even the worst of the worst, they have a little light in them somewhere, maybe, he's hoping. And if you don't, then you have to deal with the equalizer, and that's the fun of it.
You want him so badly to kill these guys in the worst way possible.
He has a skill set that's off the charts.
Yeah, he works his way up the line. The top man is no more guilty than the smallest man.
Boom. Once it starts, it's like a roller coaster. It just keeps flashing, flashing, flashing.
McCall became our superhero. He couldn't fly. He can't stop a speeding bullet. But he has heroic qualities that we look for and strive for and hope for within people.
What do you see when you look at me?
How could you help but use that kind of power to help people?
I think that's the heart of it, really. It's the humanity of the hero.
We had a lot of directors that were interested in directing the movie.
We got Antoine Fuqua, who is a genius and just unbelievably gifted.
Going right to his face, and you can see his face doing the flop.
He wanted to be on board, and we wanted him to be on board. I mean, he's very talented.
Denzel one day said to me, "Have you thought about Antoine?" And I'm like, that's a really interesting idea.
Obviously, Denzel and Antoine had such an amazing working relationship from training day.
We can start with you or me or somebody just saying bang.
Right.
We can start with bang.
Yep, okay.
You know what I mean?
Do that.
We sent him the material and he responded to it, and we sat down and he had tons of ideas, and it was, you know, just basically enjoyed the rest of the meal because the deal was done.
Yeah, that's what that means.
He immediately called me. He said, I love the script and I want to get together and want to talk about everything, the characters. And first thing you want to do is characters, 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 characters.
Richard wrote a great script. It was always built in to take its time and allows you to go deeper into the character.
What Antoine does in such a beautiful way is watch his actors.
He likes to talk the language of character and background and things like that. It's a natural thing for him.
And then the camera's going to, after he said it, just slide this way.
He allowed us all to go into the Boston PD and to find out, like, what specifically would this guy be? This guy would work in special investigations. This guy would work in homicide. This guy would work in this.
He'll come up to you, and even if you're doing exactly what he wants, he'll be like, keep doing it, but just try something, I'll play with it, you know, throw this in. And Antoine is someone who really does conduct in that way.
So he'll have times where I think he's got 1,000 things he's thinking about, and then he'll have a great idea of like, hey, when you go, maybe you want to say something about this.
He has a firm hand and an intelligent and clear way of working.
And I'm always like coming up with new lines or new this, and he's very receptive to creativity.
He's leaving room for the actor to make their own choices.
I can honestly say that Antoine sees things unbelievably clear, and he had an idea for how to give the action a hyper-real sense and yet grounding.
The first step was having long conversations with Denzel about those action sequences and what they could be.
We do this. See, go for Charm. That's what, when we do this side.
He's a great actor. How do you take acting and make it action?
That's it. That's it.
Let's look at this as if it was a scene of dialogue.
As we talked through the action sequences, he brought in some Navy SEALs and some DEA guys that have all been in the field, have all done some things you don't want to know about, and he wanted it all to be real.
I spent time with Jason and Todd, the producers, and Denzel. We talked a lot about what that equalizer thing is. What is the equalizer thing?
We got to make sure Robert McCall has a certain look in his eye and a certain way that he sees a room.
16 seconds.
I thought, how do I show that? And then I started experimenting with, what if I can go into the eye? What if I can hear the heartbeat slow down or hear the breathing slow down? And what if I could see it from his perspective, how things come into sharp focus? And it's all really happening in seconds, how they assess a room. And then all those things they figured out, you watch them go into action.
These things don't last long. It's not going to be, 5 minutes of action. It's going to be actually really 15 seconds of action.
Marcel's like it, huh?
We got his throat coming.
Let's go one more time. He's doing all of that real close work with specialized cameras and all that kind of stuff. That's his area of expertise, and I just trust him on that.
Let's go a little looser than one that's a touch looser, Kurt.
Most of us live our lives listening to our jazz in our car, whatever we're doing, and you're having a nice day, and then when something violent happens, most people panic and everything shuts down. But a person of violence, everything slows down and becomes more in focus. Even the breathing slows down. He's like that, but on a different level. It's not like he kills you from a distance. He gets in your face and he's watching the light go out in your eyes. That's a different type of human being. That's a man that understands violence.
Now he's stalking you. Now you got nothing. See? Here it is. Oh, come on.
So I started doing studies on it, talking to psychiatrists about it, talking to people who do this for a living, some SEALs, some special forces friends of mine, some undercover cops that I know really well. They're the nicest guys in the bar. They don't have anything to do with violence, man. They do that for a living, unfortunately. They see the worst of mankind, but if you engage them and that switch goes off, everything about them changes. And it's all instinct. And you don't want to be in a room with a guy like that when he explodes. And then I went to the eye doctor and I asked him, I said, I hear a lot of things about violence. I said, what do you, as a doctor, what do you understand about what happens? He said, oh, absolutely. And he showed me on a test. He said, you see here, if you get excited about something, your eye opens for more light. He said, but those men, he was a military guy, he said their heart slows. So the complete opposite happens to them than happens to us. And that's what we did with those scenes was he's quick. He already figured out what he's going to do to you. And it should be slowed down so that I can still see him as a character within all this movement.
When he does the eye thing, give me a good jerk. When he does the neck thing, give me a good snap. You need to move a little slower to build into it.
It's more like a 70s film, and those films would take their time to unfold. You didn't know where the character was going to take you until it happens. And then you're in it by that point.
Yeah, nice guys, good sell. Good sell, guys.
We wanted to make a film that it's like a stick of dynamite, It's always interesting to watch the wick. It's sparkly and interesting, and then you know it's going to explode at some point.
You see it in the wide, let's get a longer lens. What makes this work with the way you fight. Yep. Then all of a sudden the Russian,
We got,
yeah, we got all that. There we go. Great, let's go again.
Hey, yo, Pops, we betting on what you did before you got here.
I was a pip, like this.
Oh, don't do that right now. Don't do that. Oh, the spin.
Wait a minute.
Oh.
You can only really build a great character if you have an unbelievable actor. So, starting with Denzel, I mean, we've got one of the greatest working actors of all time.
I watched every Denzel Washington movie ever made. He's our most preeminent actor.
Denzel is someone who doesn't beat around the bush. He is, you know, cut and dry. He gets his job done, he does it right, but he's nice while he does it.
I'd see. Denzel is very generous to his other actors.
I think it's brilliant to cast Denzel as Robert McCall. He really makes a great equalizer.
Who are you? I don't know anybody that goes around calling themselves the something. I don't worry about that. I just try to interpret the part, and I don't try to play the title.
Richard Wank wrote an unbelievable script, a script that Denzel Washington not only said yes to, but said, yes, and here's when I start. I mean, he gave us his slot. That just doesn't happen. He wanted to play Robert McCall.
I pick up the phone, and he says, Todd, and I said, yeah, and he goes, this is Robert McCall. And I started smiling, and he goes, I'm in. Call the studio, but let me call my agent first. And he hung up. That's the way it all started.
He's a human being. He's just not some action guy. You know, I wasn't interested in that. I mean, who is he? What makes him tick? What are his flaws? What's he overcoming? You know, he's got his OCD issues, and, you know, you're just trying to do better.
With an actor like Denzel, you don't want to rush because he brings so many little nuances and details to a character, like the OCD, things that you can't rush through that.
His process was to sit at my desk for 2 hours every day and go through the script line by line. And he always carried the first draft that he got a year earlier. Make sure that all the things that appealed to him in that draft stayed in. And we did it for 2 weeks straight until it was locked. I think silence is a big part of the whole script. He's not a talker, he's a listener. He can say so much without saying anything. He said, I don't need to say that. I can play that. So I was conscious of that while writing all of his scenes, and even the scenes where he has to talk.
You're right.
All the dialogue I would cut out before he even read it. There was still a few more, and he was always right about it. And watching him do it, it's like a writing lesson.
Move the camera over more. It's a hard thing to explain, but it's like I'm always constantly telling the cameraman sometime, don't turn the camera off. You know, because I'm watching the monitor and he's already there in his world doing what he does, and he's brilliant at it. The trick is recognizing it and also knowing when to just let the camera roll. Don't stop it, because he is unpredictable in the best way possible, because he's really there. And it's like you're just almost a fly on the wall at times to capture it. And you just have to be smart enough to know when to continue.
Bob.
It's interesting working with someone like that and kind of picking up on what he sees and seeing a set through his eyes and how he conducts himself on set. He's taken his time to speak to me and to get to know me and for me to know him, to where we have this chemistry together. So it's interesting to kind of actually build our characters' relationship while building our relationship as people. It helps a lot.
You think you know me? You strike me as a sentimental man, Mr. McCall. The whole thing with Denzel has been very enjoyable. He's very focused, very much about the work, very concentrated. He knows his craft, and it's very helpful in that he maintains his own space, his own way of doing things very strongly, more than anyone else I've worked with, and I really appreciated that.
You did it to this badge, Frank. You disrespected this badge. You understand me?
All right, I got fucking nothing.
You're right. You got nothing. You're exactly right.
when we're playing scenes together, we're just two actors and we're trying to figure it out together. And like we're trying to figure out what the meat of the scene is and what we're doing, and he's like right there with you trying to do that stuff. And that's what I love. I love when big stars who don't really need to be generous for any particular reason just are, because they love acting.
If you've come for my help, I can't give you any.
I understand.
Do you?
Just came for tea.
I come to work to create a character and be a part of a story. And one of the great pleasures for me of working with Denzel is he seems to be on that page as well.
I know a part of you died when Vivian did, but not the part she loved the most.
You use what you have and you make up the rest of it.
You had a nice funeral, in case you were wondering. It's a pleasure to work with him. He's an actor I've admired for a long time, and being on the set with him and doing these scenes together, there's been a good exchange about what the scenes are about, and then there's the frank moments of just here we are, working away and looking out for each other and trying to get the best job done.
Well, someone once told me I could be whoever I wanted to be.
Body, mind.
Spirit.
That's what says most about a person, is how they treat people who they're working opposite.
That's what we do, Mr. McCall.
We who?
We find people we need to find.
We who?
You can have a brilliant script, you can have a lousy script, but it's the company you keep that makes the difference.
Sometimes I could just see when he's about to make a turn and do something.
He says more with less than any actor working today.
The camera can just be close on him, and there's a million stories to tell. It depends what you, the viewer, are going to put onto it.
You know, I don't know. I don't look at it too much from the outside. I'm just dealing with it from the inside out. So I'll be curious to see how people respond and or relate to it.
Denzel was like a little kid. He was excited to get back in there and do these things.
He didn't want a lot of martial arts type fighting. He wanted straight, kind of street, slick, creative fighting.
He takes care of business. You don't want to get in his way, but it's not with a gun.
I haven't looked at what we've done, but I know I win. You're right.
The person that did this was highly skilled, possibly military training. I don't think it's someone we've encountered before.
First thing I said was, it should be fast, but it should be personal, so that I could still see him as a character within all this movement.
He made it very clear, maybe to the chagrin as us as producers, and I'm sure Denzel's agent too, that he didn't want body doubles. He didn't want stunt doubles doing the stunts.
Me and Denzel talked, I said, let's have him be quick with his movements, but let's slow it down so that you can see him do it. And he rehearsed those things much faster than even what you saw. And he was doing it all. And then when I saw it, I felt like I don't want to lose the power of who he is as an actor. So we brought Keith in, our stunt coordinator, who was a Navy SEAL. And then I made it very close and personal.
It's just one of those deals where you almost have to see him like 95% of the time. We wanted him to do it all. That's why we started about a month before shooting in LA and started training him.
We'd work together and do sort of a mixed martial arts workout 3 times a week.
There's some variations of many things. There is some amount of martial arts, but most of it is, you know, street fighting and cage fighting. You know, things you learn along the way, like I learned from the military. Special abilities, special forces, techniques. You come here, you gotta let it go.
He got Denzel on a schedule that I cannot believe he got him on. He had Denzel boxing, training, fighting.
Once we got him going and working out every day, and I'm not, you know, bragging him up, but he's pretty damn quick.
Denzel would not do the movie if he had to use a gun. He wouldn't have done it.
Hands where I could see him. It is a staple of big Hollywood movies, and we believed that we could do something a little different here, that he didn't have to use a gun to deliver the impact that he does.
He uses his physical skills and he takes what you have and uses it against you.
When you are the equalizer, you walk into a room and there's 2 or 3 guys. You scan the room while you're having conversations. So if a fight does break out, you want to use everything in that room on the defense.
Well, there's your chair, there's the camera there next to you that could be slammed into your head. Everything's a weapon.
I met with a friend of mine who does these things for a living. He laid out all these different things in the room. He said, look, if you're in a bar or the place, these are the things that would be useful to me. He pulled out these corkscrews and did this, and I immediately saw Denzel, because Denzel boxes every day. He's on the set boxing.
I talk to a lot of Navy SEALs, guys who've done hand-to-hand combat. They can tell when they go in a room who's going to get up first.
16 seconds. When the scene starts and the fighting gets ready to start, one guy comes in and that first move on him may be quick. Then the second guy's on him, and then, that move is even quicker.
Yeah, leave that moving. And as I reach, you can reach. You see what I'm saying? Which is later than this shot. Perfect.
Once McCall throws somebody or kicks somebody a certain direction, then that gives us time to deal with that next person that's coming in.
Action.
These things don't last long. It's not going to be, 5 minutes of action. It's going to be actually really 15 seconds of action. Brutal, real hardcore action.
He grabs him, and all of a sudden, that's what that is. The guy's throwing punches and he's blocking him. It's like a boxer. Well, it's not like he kills you from a distance. He gets in your face and he's watching the light go out in your eyes.
Denzel, fortunately, can play that better than anybody.
He wanted us to believe that anything and everything that Denzel Washington's character does in this movie, he could do, because he is doing it.
He's done very, very well. I'm proud of him.
You're going to feel the hurt. You're going to feel the pain.
We have probably 6, 7, 8 kills in this movie that you have never seen before, and you will never forget.
What happened?
Hit it on something stupid.
I've never looked at it as an action movie. We never talked about it as just an action movie. It's a character-driven movie with action in it, right? And we took our time, before we even get to the action, building the character, getting to know the character and some of the, mysteries about the guy.
I think he's in denial about who he is and what he's done. He's trying to keep the past in the past, and he's not a guy who works at Walmart, lives alone. He's actually something else, but to the world, he's a guy who works at, well, not even to the world, because the kids ask him right away, what is it, you used to do for a living? They sense something that he's more than a guy who works at Walmart.
Yo, you are a pimp.
Or not a pimp, hip, P-I-P, but he's tried to suppress his past, and I think that it's manifest again in his behavior, his obsessive behavior. I took a hint from him always looking at his watch, and which led me to thinking about obsessive behavior, which led to obsessive compulsive behavior.
You know, we built a lot of just sustained tension within that before any violence happened.
Joel Silver used to talk about, I think it was the whammo factor or something like that, the whammo chart.
Yeah, every
10 minutes, like 10 minutes in, we got to blow up something.
Yeah.
So we don't blow up anything for how long?
About 20 minutes, 20, 30, somewhere around there.
My real name's Alina.
You have to love the girl,
Bob.
You have to care for the girl right away. We didn't have time for you to sort of get to know her and get to see if she's a decent person. She just has a good spirit. So as soon as you see her at the counter, and she starts talking and you look in her eyes and stuff like that, just Chloe herself. You like Chloe, you care for Chloe.
Loaded with poison, just like you like it.
Is it your birthday?
Nah, somebody's at work.
Oh, happy birthday to some guy at work.
She's that person. She's a special individual. She lights up a room. You know, she brings her own lights. So when you see that, if you're wise, you take advantage of it. You capture it. You hire her. You know, and she just had that magic that she's just gifted that way. And I won't say without trying, because she's obviously doing her work, but she carries her own lights.
She's a sweetheart.
Yeah, I can imagine if I don't like her.
Yeah, you don't like her. Like,
we're in trouble.
We're in trouble. Right?
Yeah, we're in trouble.
From the first frame, you gotta like her. You gotta love her. She's still a kid. She's got little headphones on with little hearts on it, and you know.
And she tries to be grown.
Right.
Which is endearing. Right. You know, she tries to be sexy. She doesn't even have hips yet.
She can't even walk in the hills.
Yeah, she couldn't walk in the hills well, but which makes it sadder.
Yeah.
You know, that obviously someone is taking advantage of a child. Right. She's still a child, you know. She hasn't filled out yet, so it's worse. It's worse.
For me, it was living in half worlds, living in the glass, you know, this glass case, living in that world, but the outside world still exists. Tim McCall goes there at 3 o'clock in the morning every night. He tries to sort of escape by going into books, and he's in this little corner in his little world, but the world keeps coming to him. And Chloe walks in there and she's sitting in there, right? Then she comes over to the table, so you can't escape it.
You gotta be who you are in this world.
Right? So that's what it is. You can't escape the world. It's outside. You know, it's the only way to show it.
You know, I see a lot of widowed guys. Something in your eyes.
I think they connect. You know, she understands things about him, or at least voices what she understands about him. Well, I'll say she understands things about him most people don't, like his sadness, you know, the fact that he's a widower. And, she talks about seeing it in his eyes. So I think that he hasn't opened up to too many people, and he sort of, to a degree, opens up to her, and then she's obviously in this precarious situation. I'm here for that girl. Her freedom. I think he came there to give them the money to get her released. I don't think he came there for any other reason. I'd like to think he thought that was going to work. You know, I don't think he came there planning on a fight, but he was capable.
Richard Rink wrote in the script some details about, again, clues, you know, that he sees things in a special way. But it wasn't defined yet, because if he wrote it in the script, it would have been, you know, 2 or 3 pages. And so we had to come up with a way to make it interesting and, you know, exciting in a unique way. The idea was to show the audience, you know, how the heart rate slows down, how the eye works as far as taking in light, things becoming sharper. But the idea was that he had already assessed all that when he first entered the room. What I was just trying to do was just show you what was happening in his mind within seconds. So, you know, it was just to make it more of an internal battle, to go inside and make the audience feel like they were from his perspective, you know, and to witness a man who understands violence. You know, there's violent men and men who understand violence. Men who understand violence already decided what they're going to do to you before it's done. That's Robert McCall.
We spent months just doing that one drill. We did it, I don't know, thousands and thousands of times, and I would just practice it all day in during the course of the day, just speed moves. And really it comes from relaxation. It's not trying to be fast, it's just trying to be relaxed. I was white, man. There you go. Yeah, as soon as the better.
It was so well oiled before we got there, as Denzel was saying. They laid it out and they worked it out. So by the time we got there, it was a matter of how I was going to capture it, but they had already laid it out.
And we rehearsed it eventually as a master. I mean, we did the entire thing. You know, we built the parts and then we put it together, and I just got to where it was a dance, really. You know, you just knew what to do, and great stuntmen. You know, they made me look good.
Well, stuntmen rehearsing with you, but not stuntmen doing it.
Right.
It's Denzel.
Oh yeah, right. No, I don't mean stuntmen for me. I mean the other guys.
Oh yeah, the guy you took out.
Yeah, they were protecting me.
Action.
That's nice. That's one of the conversations we would have was just, how do you do an action scene that would be informative, so it's not just an action scene, and how do you do an action scene that's, you don't lose the drama of having Denzel Washington doing it himself, where the camera's all over the map and you don't know it, you don't see anything.
You go right to his face, and you see his face doing the.
So it's almost like a little bit of a throwback in a way when they used to make movies where where you saw the violence, westerns where you saw someone get shot, or even the 70s where you actually witnessed the event and the actor doing it. I shot it like a narrative in a way, because every time I read the script, I said, what is it saying? What does it tell us? And what does it say about McCall? So a man that can take out a room in 16 seconds with no gun, by using everything that's there, tells you more than any writer could just write out when you witness that sort of brutality. And the fact that he could look a guy in his eyes and put a corkscrew in his chin and look him in his eyes as he bleeds out and then yank it out.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, You
never done that?
A couple times, Not as good though.
Well, thank you.
I always miss. I always get up and
Well, that's good. Ears as good as a chin.
But yeah, that's what it is. He took care of these guys, and he took care of them in a way where there's no evidence of who did it. And that's why when you see it on the news, she says it's a gang.
Police sources have said the killings have all the earmarks of a turf war.
No one believes one guy took out all these guys that way. So as far as he was concerned, it was, it was a done deal. And until Teddy comes in, and then they bring the rest of the violence to him. That's why it's really important, I keep saying, it's not a vigilante movie, because he doesn't go after anybody for violence. He goes after everybody to give him a chance. They bring the violence, and then he just handles it after that.
Hey, officer.
Whoa, put the light down.
He's the equalizer. These are guys who should be upholding the law, but they're taking advantage of their position of authority, and he doesn't care for that. And it's personal because it is Ralphie, so he's got to do something about that. Those people you took the money from, maybe you should give it back.
Why would we do that?
That would be the best interest of everyone involved.
I've always felt that McCall looks for some glimmer of light in everybody, so everybody gets a chance. He's not completely dark and evil.
Because I say that, what was it? I say to Teddy or somebody, I say, I gave you a chance. I tried to give you a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's his nature, to want to give people an opportunity first, especially guys that should be upholding the law.
Maybe our best interest is to tie a cinder block around your waist and throw you in the fucking Mystic.
The way Denzel played him is so just a normal guy, the jeans and the cheap shirts, and there was nothing about him that looked like he was going to be the guy that walked in the room being a badass. He's just like a really normal guy. So it's on them to underestimate somebody, to walk in the room and think he's supposed to look a certain way to be a badass. He was just a normal guy. So he can let him go as far as he felt comfortable, and it was their mistake. In shooting it, it was like Denzel worked it out with them as well at what point when he was going to start to move and we choreographed it. But, a guy like that, he probably could have had the handcuffs put on him and still could have done something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I could have done.
Yeah. Handcuffs is a weapon. Thing.
That's right. Choke him out.
Yeah.
I'm offering you a chance to do the right thing. Take it.
That fucking hurt more than the beating.
Took it easy on them, though. He didn't.
Yeah. Broken nose.
Yeah, broken nose.
Broken arm. Yeah.
There you go.
That ring, too. Give me that ring.
He's already 10 steps ahead of most people, right, in seconds. So he knows he's in Homar. There's people around, civilians around.
Right.
So he's clocking every little detail. That's why we shot the kid coming through the door. He wouldn't do anything that would to jeopardize civilians. He's a good man. You know, the door opens and the kid comes through and he, you know, lets it go. These kind of individuals see the details of everything. So later, when I do get the hammer, he would be easy to find. Lumberjack hat, the tattoos on the neck.
Right,
it's
right.
Like just, he just details, you know, that's what it is. Also, you know, look on the neck right here, that's a artery, you know? You hit somebody there, you take them out.
Right.
So he looks at all those things that we don't look at, the human anatomy, that we don't think about. Where are the soft spots?
You should have played the part.
Huh?
You should have played the part, man. You get into it.
He wouldn't be here today.
And a lot of times, you know, like in a good scary movie, it's what you don't see.
Yeah.
It's what you imagine. You see him just wiping off the hammer and putting it back. It's like, oh man, what did he? You know, you can only imagine what he did, which is, I think, better sometimes. He knows he's not alone. I think he assumes there's more than that. You know, yeah. What does he say? Just you, or yeah. Is it just you, or are we waiting for someone else? And he talks about his hands, so he's already can tell he's not what he appears to be. Your hands. If you really work the power lines down there, your hands wouldn't look like that. I know we got to be waiting for somebody else. When you think anything's a weapon, then you start looking everywhere. Just look around. Everything. A hot cup of coffee. Everything. You know, you can take the top off and scratch you. You know, try to hit you in the eye or you know, any and everything. Sometimes your first blow is just to get your attention. Obviously, the throat is good. You know, a lot of times they'll step on your foot, so you look down. Then they'll open you up. You know, if you stomp on somebody's foot, first thing they're gonna do is that. Whatever choice you make.
What the hell is this guy doing?
Gets the lights out, makes a beeline for Teddy's vehicle and gets pictures of them. Gets the one up on them.
And McCall's a guy who probably comes from a time where we didn't have cell phones and all that kind of crazy stuff all the time. And he doesn't need to be a part of that, you know, that technology unless he needs it. The idea was that you assume he doesn't use any of that stuff based on the books and his house. You don't see anything fancy in there. But when he starts to use it, again, it starts to inform you. He's really up on technology. He's up on it more than you are. But you didn't know that because he doesn't appear it that way. It's informative of where does he come from? His house has nothing fancy, no technology. But then when he goes into a different mode, then he's got clocks with cameras in it. He's got all kind of stuff going on. You go, okay, this guy comes from somewhere, wherever his background is, it goes deep. And that, to me, tells you more about him. Again.
Yeah, and he wants to draw them in. He wants to see where they're coming from. And even going back to fighting, if someone grabs your wrist, your tendency is to push or do something, but sometimes pulling is the way to get your opponent off balance. So he actually pulls them in. He creates a vacuum and they fill it. So that now they're operating on his terms. They're chasing him, but they don't know where he is.
When you look at me, what do you see?
I needed somebody that obviously had a certain size to just be next to Denzel. I needed someone that had a certain presence to be in a scene with Denzel. I needed somebody that wouldn't drown as an actor to be in a scene with Denzel. And he's a theater actor as well, which of course Denzel is. So he just had a presence and a discipline about him that was really important.
Let me apologize for my conduct.
He's the sweetest man But he had a darkness about him too, and I said, we need that. Because when he opens the door and they're standing in the doorway, if you don't feel he's strong, then you don't feel the threat for Robert. Denzel met him in the casting, Mary Vannu's office. As soon as I saw them just sitting there, just talking in general, I was like, okay, that's a good match.
You can call your boss and tell him to shut down his operation tonight.
That's not much of an offer.
That's the only one you're gonna get.
McCall's so honest. To me, he's just telling him what it is. Call your boss, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do that. Like it's pure.
Yeah, he's not trying to figure him out at that, but it's too late for that. Yeah.
He's just pretty much said,
yeah.
I'm gonna what's the line? I'm gonna make an exception for you.
Yeah. I promised someone I love very much that I wouldn't go back to being that person, but for you, I'm gonna make an exception.
And then
I remember.
And then he does.
Yeah.
So it's about as honest as you can get. There's no testing and playing around anymore. He's there to tell him how this is going to go down if he doesn't do what he's asking him to do. And then he gives him an option. He writes down the number. Here, you can make the call.
Right.
Again, he gives people a chance. Even the worst person, which is Teddy, he gives him a chance to like get out of the situation by doing the right thing.
Very clever, Mr. McCall. I decided to come see you.
I'll be waiting for you.
For me, the idea was every battle, especially at that level, was informative. A guy like that is working at this store, and you've already seen how capable he is of handling himself in a bar with just corkscrews and shot glasses. So imagine how capable he would be with drills and all this stuff at Homart. And the other thing it tells you, for me, was that this is a guy that's been in the jungles in the world. He's the type of guy that gets dropped off somewhere in the darkness by himself, and he'll figure out what becomes weapons. You know, I always saw it as like going into Vietnam, into Ho Chi Minh's territory. They know the land. You're in their territory. So now you're coming into McCall's territory, and it tells you more about him. I don't know anybody that thinks about taking barbed wire, wrapping it around cement, and creating a noose with a dog collar catcher and hanging a guy. Like that comes from training and thinking, and that's a whole other level of a person. Again, it's informative of who Robert McCall is. In the mystery of his past, you don't have to say a lot because who knows how to do that? You know what I mean? Even if you're a violent individual, you don't think that way. That's all very strategic thinking. You know, aisles are this wide, you know? So how do you get to somebody when you don't want to be seen, they have weapons, and you need to get across the shelf and get a guy? He traps you with this guy, puts sand on the ground so he can hear you, draws you in, and then takes you out with the hedge cutters, they call them, the long hedge.
Everything becomes a weapon. As you were saying, that men or women who think like that, it's Disneyland for them. I mean, everything is a tool. Because I look at the Nestle's Crunch and figure out, you know, I'll feed you to death or something. Yeah, we'll do that on the next one. Just shove Baby Ruths down his throat. Yeah, eat that.
You like that, huh? I'll get a sugar rush.
Yeah.
It's fun in the movie and it's exciting. Every one of those pieces we went through with all of us discussing it, because we had a lot of choices, a lot. And we went through it with Denzel and Todd and Jason and our stunt guys, Keith and everybody, and those are the smart tools. And everything he did drew them to him. The guy with the drill, he makes them think that he's a tripwire. It's a tripwire right there, right? It looks like a bomb. He knows the guy's got to back up out of there, and then there he is with the drill. So again, everything he did was strategic, military, or some deep training that you got to know. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do any of that stuff. The thing that was real in there was that sink and all that stuff falling. Yeah, that wasn't planned. They were going at it and it just crashed.
Oh, the sink in the crash?
Yeah, that big sink.
Oh, yeah?
Back. Yeah, that was real.
Oh.
Yeah, when it crashed.
I was busy. I had to keep my eye on this big fellow. That was a big boy.
That was a big boy.
That was a big boy, and I couldn't get him off me. But, you know, again, they're looking out for me. They're not, you know, they don't want to hurt me. And I told them, you know, I'm capable. Because sometimes you can get hurt when they're trying to be too careful. So I said, let's go for it. Let's, you know, I know how to make it look rough without it being too rough. And everybody just did their job. So it was real easy for me. It wasn't real easy, but it was.
Did he push him off?
He's a big boy. That was the hardest part of the scene, getting him off me.
Yeah, he's an MMA fighter, but also he had the bulletproof vest and all that gear on.
Right.
So
yes,
he's
I know.
two something on muscle and that gear.
Yeah. Too much. The water wasn't warm. That's all I'll say about that. The water wasn't warm.
I didn't get a lot of
It's cute. It looks great in slow motion when you see the movie, but yeah, you know, it is what it is. I mean, that's my job. It wasn't that bad.